I really like to taste all the subtle differences when you make very short infusions, because every second counts. It changes the flavor so much with 1 extra second. This is my 20th year of drinking loose leaf tea. I grew up as a child drinking sweet black tea with ice, but it wasn't until I first came to Czech Republic in the year 2000 when I first had real loose leaf tea, and it changed my life. The first time I had tea in loose leaf form was a very mystical place that no longer exists, unfortunately. It was this very strange tea house in the basement of an old church from the 17th century. And it was a Lutheran church, but it got flooded in 2002 and it moved away. But my first experience was going down this long tunnel-like entranceway and smelling all of the incense and all of the herbs and this super strong smell of plants, delicious plants. And then there were these guys in all black with shaved heads working. They were like monks and they didn't speak, and they would bring you this menu, very thick menu with a bell on top. And I'd never seen a place like this. Had no idea that this could exist, and it blew me away. And reading through the menu, it showed me how big the world was and how many different flavors there were and how many different countries that were growing tea. I had no idea, and it really encouraged me to go travel and to experience new places and try to find new flavors and seeking the traditions of the old people, the old ways, and seeing what tea was all about, that it was not something that came in a bag that you put hot water on, but rather it's this amazing leaf that can be processed and rolled in so many different ways that it gets all these different flavors. And learning that the origin and the soil and the amount of rain they had the year before, all these things go into affecting the flavor of the tea, and you can't count on the same flavor every year. And to learn about the teas that age better, like with fine wines, and to see over this 20-year period since I first got into tea, to see how the rest of the world is slowly catching up to where Czech was 20 years ago. And in a way, the Czech tea culture peaked and got very saturated, but has moved in different ways. And the exploration for new teas by Czech people has been amazing, and really encouraging people from around the world to do the same thing, which is quite an interesting awakening for the rest of the world to slowly get into this. But unfortunately, it will mean that the prices of tea will continue to rise, because more and more people will get into good tea and the quantity is just so low. Yeah, so basically I was encouraged to go travel, and I went and traveled for many years, and I ended up in China, and I studied Chinese and Chinese tea, and I really enjoyed learning about all the Chinese teas and their amazing culture, and And then I ended up, after the Olympics in 2008, I went to California and I met some people serving tea at festivals, and I got involved in this. Yeah, I've had several tea places myself, smaller, not so commercial things, but yes, I serve tea at Burning Man and at many other festivals in California. But I like this idea of having a place in the city that you can go and drink tea and meet other people, like a tea bar. And I feel like this type of service or business or community space needs to happen more, because so many amazing ideas can come out of sitting around a tea table for an extended period of time. And I feel like our society needs better ideas and better connections between people, and creating this type of environment facilitates this. It's like a vessel for facilitating interactions and connections. The service and the sharing of tea is different than the current Czech model, where you just drink tea with your friends or by yourself, and instead having some type of tea bar and tea service where you get to try a lot of different teas, and you're not so intimidated by a giant menu that's full of teas you've never had before. And with this experience, you are able to get many, many more people interested in tea and all the varieties and flavors of the tea that otherwise people might never get into, because there are just too many to choose from. So this tea service at the festivals, it's based on the Chinese gong fu tea style. That's the small teapots and the small cups, and spilling water and fun conversations and meeting new people, and really being the center of a village in a way. And having a tea service, it turns out it's one of the best antidotes for our constant connectivity and addiction to electronic devices, is just sitting around and talking to people. It's quite amazing how fulfilling it feels after you sit around and have tea and conversation for 1 or 2 hours with cool people. It's much different than going and just having a pot of tea with one friend, or just sitting by yourself with tea. Tea with friends, especially random people, when there's the ability for random people to drop in and no one knows this person and they've never had tea before, and it's this whole awakening for the person. So I find that this is one of my passions, is giving the experience of new flavors to people and having people say, wow, I never knew that flavor existed, or I had no idea that I liked this, because I always thought I didn't like it because someone told me it was bad once or something. And giving people new flavors, it's kind of like taking somebody to a new place and showing them something beautiful. But it's just this flavor receptor in your taste buds that hasn't been accessed yet. Tea has so many endless varieties of flavors that it becomes somewhat of an addiction to, or passion, to continually search for new teas and new flavors, and see if you can bring back the one that everyone's going to go crazy over. So yeah, this hunt for plants it's amazing. It's still going on. I mean, we're still searching for the medicines in the Amazon, and people are still searching for the best teas in China, because it's very subjective and everyone has their own flavors that they like, and there's always going to be new flavors created from the mixing and matching of all the different teas out there. And I think this is really fascinating to see Czechs going abroad and getting land in tea growing areas and growing tea or selling tea abroad. And yeah, I think that there should be a Czech tea house in China if there isn't already. But that would be, I think, the ultimate of the Czech tea culture is to have a Czech tea house in China, because they basically eliminated most all of the tea houses in China during the Cultural Revolution, unfortunately. So they've been bombarded recently with Western coffee companies, and it would be nice to see a Western tea company come in and kind of get them back into what they were doing before. There are plenty of tea stores in China, but very few tea houses. And I'm not sure what the count in Czech is now, but at one point there were more than 350, which must be a record for per capita in the world. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Person. Czech has a lot of tea houses that seem to have the same formula. The US doesn't have so many tea houses, and the ones they do have usually don't have shisha involved. They're usually separate. They're only tea. And on the West Coast in America, people have gotten really big into pu'er, and that's been something that's been quite a phenomenon to see happen for the last 10 years or so. It's really exploded. But I think that in Czech, you go to some person's house, just any random person, and they have a few teapots, nice teapots in their house. And in America, you definitely don't find this. It's not that common that people are into tea. I think the internet's really helped the growth, because people that live in the middle of nowhere who don't have anybody to drink tea with, they can order tea online and then maybe find a local friend through the internet. But I think that the Czech tea culture is already so established with festivals and with all the tea houses that it's hard to create a big growth within Czech. But I really like the way that the ceramic industry that is native to Czech before tea was here, it's adapted and has really grown, and there's some amazing Czech ceramicists that are making teapots and tea vessels, and I think this is slowly happening in America. For example, a friend of mine has a tea house in Austin, and there are local craftspeople there making teapots and things like that. I literally can taste the tea that I want to drink in my mouth, and hopefully I still have some of that tea that I can make, because a lot of times that's the biggest challenge, is you want to drink a tea but you don't have any left because you've already finished it. So I think it's become part of my life, and I would rather not live without it. And I can go a few days without tea, of course, but do I like those days? Not so much.
So what's about the tea that you will miss, or what's that?
Well, I think first of all, it's got caffeine, which I'm pretty much addicted to, but something about the flavor and the energy it gives me, and the feeling of being alive and creative, and it's just I don't know. And with different periods, the flavor I would like to have in my mouth changes. It's really strange. I don't really know why, but it continually changes. So I'm definitely not the type of person that could just drink the same tea the rest of my life. It's like a never-ending pursuit for the best flavor.